Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. Hello and welcome to Unqualified Advice, an entertaining show for entertainment purposes. Join us as we talk about running our businesses, what we've been learning, and how we're applying lessons from academia and real life as entrepreneurs and investors. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Topics discussed represent opinions represented by parties with different circumstances than your own and should not be taken as advice. Any discussion of securities or other investments should not be relied upon as investment advice. Consult your personal financial advisor and perform your own due diligence. Podcast hosts, guests, and clients of Fig Social Capital may own positions in securities discussed in this podcast. Sean, welcome to your fourth decade.
Thank you. I feel like I've been lifting weights over here, man. Like as it was approaching, I felt a lot of weight of the imminent, the big 4-0 coming. And then I think since it's hit, I've felt the weight of that kind of lift off. It's been kind of nice.
You've been set free?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Like I was worrying about it more than I needed to. I don't know. Or
I think that's natural. At least the people that I've talked to that, in our circles, there's lots of people moving from 39 to 40. I just moved to 41.
Yeah. It's, I think I haven't felt as good since I've been 38, honestly.
Nice. This is what happens when you let the dread rule over you.
Yeah, right. I guess it was eating at me more than I really was willing to admit to myself, perhaps.
You were letting it.
Yeah, I was letting it. So yeah, shame on me, but
no, shame on you. This is so what other, is there any other area of your life that maybe you're doing this to yourself that you shouldn't allow?
Well, on that front, I guess I have some news to relay. So I have decided to wind down Fig. So something that I was taking our advice to heart of asking more questions and asking some hard questions of myself and just looking at what costs had been growing, and I hadn't been able to grow the top line enough. My compliance costs went up like 50%. My bookkeeping went up 50%. And I'm not able to keep up with it. So I am going through the process now of figuring how to wind everything down on the professional front. I mean, I'm still going to obviously do what I do on the side. But yeah, I think that was something that had been kind of weighing on me, seeing those costs, what they were last year and knowing I wasn't covering them and just feeling like I'm probably not going to be able to grow that business quick enough. And as I've done it, I satisfied the itch to scratch the itch. And I realized the quote you sent over kind of made me think of that. You're not going to get anywhere in this world. You're not going to get anywhere financially, spiritually, or socially until you otherwise get to the point where you don't give a damn about what other people think about you. And I think some of what was making me not realize this sooner was the not wanting to thinking about how other people would see me for making that decision. If that makes sense.
It does. So if that is true, what I hear you saying is that this decision was sort of already made. You had to come to grips with it.
I think so. Yes. I think so. When I opened up, I said, I set myself a goal of by the time I'm 40, I'm either going to do this, to be able to pour my heart into it and, do it full time, or I go on and figure out what the next step is. And here I am at 40 and, did some introspection over the time, the kind of that time between when we last spoke and the birthday, and just kind of realized that, hey, I said this to myself and I can give myself permission to, follow through with what I said, not feel shame about that. So
is this an arbitrary line in the sand that you wish you hadn't made? or is
No, I
this a
think it was a
gate
good goal.
that
I think it was a good signpost. Like I needed to have some point where you have to assess how things are going, right, and be honest with myself about, is this real that I'm going to be able to do, make this something that's thriving. And as I thought about it and thought about what it's going to take to get there, I just the time it takes outside of my already hectic and stressful day job. It was leaving the thought, thinking about it was leaving me feeling emotionally drained, and I didn't like that.
I get that. There's only so many places where we can spend our time and gain energy.
Yeah,
We spend a lot of time spending energy.
Exactly. And then, I got to go through my lovely first and I guess last state examination periodics that they do within every 3 years. So got to go through the fun part,
And you passed.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple minor things that I need to correct on some forms, but it was nothing significant. At least out of the initial closing meeting, they didn't have anything significant that I was like, oh no. It was, minor stuff that would have been fairly easy to rectify. Anyway.
Yeah, they're always going to find something. That's basically
right.
what they're paid to do. If they bring you nothing, then clients tend to say, like, why did I pay you?
Yeah, exactly. So I think they have to, and what they found was, oh yeah, that's an error. Should have checked that box and not that box. Oops, no big deal.
I think it says a lot to pass.
Yeah.
Right. You're a lone wolf. You're trying to build something, and yet you pass this pretty stringent examination. So that's kudos to that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I feel like I could, if I were in a video game, an RPG, my title would be The Audited, with the last 3-4 months that I've been through.
That's true. You've been doing it at work and on the side gig.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I ain't scared of no auditors. I'll say that. No, and I, honestly, at the end, they're like, this was a really pleasant experience. I'm like, well, I do this, on the other side for a living, so I know what you guys are doing, what you need. And, like, the point of this, you're not here to make my life hell. I'm not here to make your life hell. We're just here to,
make the whole system better for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
largely, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway.
All right, Sean. Well, thanks for sharing that and being honest with not only yourself but all the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been kind of dreading having this conversation a little way.
I can imagine.
So I'm glad to now be past that part. Yeah, I think I said it out loud to myself for the first time on like the 31st. And then it took me another week to really come to grips with it after saying it out loud to myself for the first time. So here we are, 2.5 weeks later, and finally I'm moving through it nicely, I think.
I was going to say, moving through it is the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not getting past it or anything like that, just moving through it. And
no, it's going to remain a part of you forever.
Exactly. So, and if I ever get a wild hair or an inheritance of an enormous sum later and I decide to do it again, I can always do it again. So,
well, that's what I was admirable about what you're trying to, like, there were many admirable things about what you were trying to do. But the crappy part of it is, like, the base business itself really needs a large AUM for it to be an ongoing thing, right?
Exactly. And I just couldn't get there to where I needed it to be. And
inside of the time frame that you want.
Yeah.
I believe in you. I think you could have gotten there, but it's, if you don't come from moneyed networks, then it's really hard to get started.
It is. It really is. And, I had a couple of shots and did okay with them, but it just, it wasn't enough. So, wasn't enough. And that's what it is. You don't, not everything in life is, I don't know. it wasn't a success, but I also don't feel like it was a failure. So it was a valuable learning experience, somewhat expensive learning experience, but not really that expensive. It was I'm not,
Some time, a little bit of money. I don't know
yeah,
the numbers, but can't be that
yeah,
much.
yeah. I wasn't, honestly,
Like, it's not
I'm
setting
not,
you back. It's not changing your lifestyle.
yeah, exactly. It hasn't restricted anything. I set a little bit of money aside to make it, to basically keep the business open and functioning for a couple of years. And it was either, okay, I got to put in more or wrap it up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
totally. I totally agree.
anyway,
I think the other thing that people who are in the arena will recognize is that you tried, you put risk on the table, and you put yourself out there. That's a highly respectable thing, and other people who have done it or actively do it tend to highly respect others that are doing it.
I'm very glad to have, I don't feel, I feel very, very little regret, very little about anything, I think.
The regret
And I'm happy about
minimization
that.
framework.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. The min max
Try.
regret.
Yeah, try. You might fail. You probably won't regret it because you tried.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm happy that, happy to have had an experience in my life. So Dan, that's what's new with me this week.
That's big.
Yeah, that's big, I guess.
What's is there anything on you? Are you taking a complete like sort of uh brain hiatus, or is there something on your mind that you have cooking or you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking for, what I am looking forward to is digging into the AI lessons this week. Jamie's leaving town tomorrow, and I'm planning on starting having the laptop on the couch most nights and plugging away, well, with some Parks and Rec in the background or something. And getting into exploring those tools and learning how to build a few little, agents of my own to see how I can apply it in my life in different ways. And then honestly, like, I'm focusing on the goals I already set out for myself for the year. I want to write 1,000 words a week. I want to, I've thankfully not gotten off to no start. I've got, I'm not at my weekly goals, but I'm at least making progress towards the overall annual goal so far. I've gotten a couple rides under my belt and, I don't know, maybe 1,200 words. So not fully there, but at least getting some momentum going. And I think now that the year, I feel like the year for me really started this week. The first 2 weeks of the year didn't, between New Year's and my birthday and going on a trip to New Orleans, I feel like I didn't really get started in the year till this week. So
Yeah. That's good.
yeah, I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, but yeah, I don't have anything in particular in mind cooking. I'm looking for stuff and I'm open to ideas. And I think, an
Well, I think you've
exploration
built
phase
in a
right now.
couple different processes, right? Like you have a writing goal that's hopefully is a forcing function on a process.
Mm-hmm.
We are both taking this class from Nat Eliason that is, yeah, you want to cook off on check the boxes and beat through goals, but it's kind of like teaching teaching some other skill set that we can use in
So
some
now
other
that
kind of
you've,
process.
how speaking of that course, how far are you through it at this point?
I'm
I'm
done,
curious. You're
but
done?
he's
Okay.
but he's still posting stuff, right? So
Ah,
as soon as he posts another module, I'll get cooking on that module. But
okay.
for what has been posted, I'm all the way through.
Okay. Any tips from someone who's about to start it up fresh?
I just don't skip any videos. They're all really short. He doesn't waste your time,
Okay.
which is I really love, because a lot of video based lessons, I'm like, man, I wish I could be watching these things at. Well, it's a lot of video play. It's like, yeah, I can watch it at 2x, but every video is 7.5 minutes long, and every single time the video loader or video thing loads a new page for the next video, I have to reset all my preferences and like speed it back. These are small, minor complaints for the material wasn't very dense and
Mm-hmm.
wasn't very good, maybe on
And
these
the
other
UX had
experiences.
friction.
Yeah. But with Nat stuff, I'm going at one speed,
Mm-hmm.
because on one panel I've got cursor open and I'm cooking. I'm spending a lot of time pausing, frankly, because
Okay.
there's
That's
room.
good.
There's a lot of room for movement, right? So he might, if he's saying, we are going to build this README so that Cursor knows and understands the context of what we're trying to build. And we're on step 3. And step 3 is user authentication. Let's just say that like right off the back of user authentication, I get it working, and I'm like, oh, I've got this other idea. I'm gonna insert another step here. So I'm gonna move on to step 4, but it's gonna be my own step. I might just have Nat paused for like another 45 minutes while I cook on this other feature that wasn't part of the plan, right? Because there is no, it's not dictated to you.
Nice.
It is very choose your own story.
Okay. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. So
it's fun.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
good. Thanks for finding it and turning me on to it. I think it'll be a fun little thing to do here over the next week.
I think you're. Yeah, it'll start getting your mind cooking. There's been a lot of thoughts running through my head about. I now have too many ideas, which is fun. Yeah, not enough time to chase them all.
Well, now that I'm not going to have access to the IBKR professional Trader's Workstation, I'm going to need to come up with a new interface to execute complicated baskets.
Yes, complicated baskets. And it's like part of the reason why I don't, I love Citrini, but I don't have his powers of portfolio management.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's running everything off a Bloomberg terminal, right? So
yeah,
I'm sure totally he has much better tech available to him to make the things he does relatively simple.
Well, you can, and also their support desk is amazing. Bloomberg support desk is just, I mean, maybe it's changed. I haven't called Bloomberg.
It better be for $40K a year or whatever it is.
It's so good. And if the person you're talking to doesn't know that thing, they're like, "Hold on, I'll go grab Jamie. He's got the blah 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 set up, and he knows this." And then you get tossed over to the API specialist, and then you get tossed over to the so and so, and you've got this like crazy thing cooking. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's crazy expensive, but it is cool.
Yeah, I would love to just sit down and play around with one for a day.
Did you know that at the offices, I don't know what their workplace policy is post-COVID, but back in the day, your badge would not let you take the elevator to your floor. You had to get off like 1, 2, or 3 so many floors away from your floor. That way you had to walk through other business units' floors before getting to your desk. It was a social forcing function.
Interesting. I mean, unless you're, have a disability, I guess that works out pretty well.
Right. I'm sure there's exceptions, but
yeah.
I'm sure Mike could go directly to where he wanted to go. But I bet Mike is also the kind of person that didn't. I bet he walked a lot of floors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Sounds right.
It does.
Yeah. How big is that building? I don't have any concept of how many floors they would even occupy.
Big.
Yeah.
I don't know the direct answer or the specific answer.
Okay.
But yeah, interesting company culture over there.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, something to, I guess, consider if you're young and able to get into that industry. I think that would probably be a pretty cool place to work.
Yeah, I agree. As a starting point, I think it'd be a great place to work.
Yeah, I think it would be.
I think I hear it's demanding, but
your first job. Exactly. That's why I say I think if you're younger in your career, it's probably more realistic than I don't think I would have have it in me
today.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. What does demanding mean?
I think it's different once you reach a certain level. If you're our age and are still a junior analyst or something, you're not going to keep up. You're not learning enough. You're not learning fast enough. And you have too many demands. You likely have too many demands at home.
Yeah.
Totally
precisely. I think you'd need to be like on the cutting edge of like the latest coding on, and I, haven't coded anything in decades. So,
well, soon you won't have to. You'll soon be learning that you can just make it happen with the English language. It's pretty.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just thinking
if you can organize your thoughts.
Years.
Like now, I'm thinking like if you get a high GMAT or LSAT score, you're a good prompter. Therefore, you can build anything. Like if you can think logically and convey that information. That's all that's necessary now.
That's an interesting point. I think I see that
We may not be there right now, but like we're on the
someday.
cusp, right?
Yeah, I can see that because so much is like the power of the prompt I've learned is very important. Like you have to really consciously think about what you're trying to get out of it and describe it appropriately, and the details you give it are what it's going to give you. So if you
Well, and you can ask for like what kind of output you want too. I think that's a very important thing to do. Otherwise, it'll make up whatever it wants. But if you want 5 bullet points, it'll give you 5 bullet points. Or if you want structured data, or you want it in CSV, or
I
it'll
set
do
up
it.
a I set up a quote unquote usual analysis to dump our the transcripts into. Just like run like the same. I was realizing I'm asking the same question every time. Can I just make this a standard thing? It's like yes, we'll make this your usual analysis. And then like I didn't give it like the format of the output I wanted the last time, and it just dumped it out into like an Excel table. I'm like, oh, this is unreadable. Put this in a bulleted list, please. Like
Yes,
it
totally.
did.
You're like, why would you choose that?
Yeah. What? You gave me the least readable possible output.
Well, I think there's like the news today is Google just released. So Google, and it was 2017 or something, and released a paper. Google researchers released a paper in 2017, and that kicked off the LLM revolution, the large language model revolution. They just released another paper, and I think they referred to it as Titan or something. And it's all in regards to memory. And mind you, I had to run to a phone call this morning, so I got through like a third of the article. But the gist of it was this memory problem, this memory context problem that AI has right now may be significantly lessened in the future, given this new model from Google Research called Titan.
Nice.
And I might be mixing up some of my vocabulary, so I might not be get nailing it. But at the end of the day, it's like instead of, I think right now a lot of AI products, what the value being given is that the people behind the scenes are adding tons and tons of context to the particular prompt from the user. The user says, like, here's a picture and like question, what is this? But in order to get a really, really useful answer out of the AI, adding more context and more request about what kind of output you want and what the voice of the output to be in and all that kind of stuff, all that matters a great deal. And so that's the value these like AI wrappers are largely doing right now. But where am I going? So, but the bigger context of like when is AI going to be my like executive assistant or something, right? Well, it's like it's not, because you're going to spend all of your day trying to like reinsert the context of you inside of every single question as you context switch around your particular day, right? But with this Titan model or change or whatever, they're saying this memory problem will be not what it is currently, right?
Okay.
So if you
Mitigated
if you
somehow.
had like a custom, let's call it a custom Titan, it will continue to learn you as you integrate and work with it.
That seems
More persona.
That sounds kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But also awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's like what you want from your, go figure, it's Google and not Apple. It's what you want from your phone, right? Like the more you use it, the more it knows you, and the more it's like it understands the context with which you're doing things, and understands that when you ask it a question, exactly what you mean, without having to give it a longer prompt, essentially, right?
Yeah. To know that I'm a 41-year-old male. To know that, like, all these different things. Because it's funny, some of the I just did a bunch of blood work. And so I was asking Claude about particular numbers. And it's great feedback. It's way easier than the doctor. Until you get to a point where, like, maybe maybe you still need to talk to a real one. But I kept thinking about, like, what does a doctor know just by, like, just the intake form, if you will, right? And Claude doesn't know any of that information. Is going to need to know certain things about me. And Claude was smart enough to ask a bunch of questions about the places where I didn't provide context, but still, yeah, you have to think about all these things. But then in the context of this, Claude for you or whatever you want to call this new Titan thing, it's very interesting that so much of the context and your history would just be baked in. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it could know everything in your email, right?
It could.
It could know your search history. It could know your browsing history, which says a lot about a person, really. When you know those things, that gives you a really big insight into a revealed preference. The revealed preferences.
Revealed preference, yeah. Yeah, the thing that people often aren't honest with themselves about.
Exactly. No, but this is what you really searched, what you really clicked on. When I gave you this is the one you actually chose. So,
yeah, we know you like Newsmax.
Yeah, so Google is probably going to do better than Apple in this arena then for a while, from what I'm hearing. Or is it going to be something that is easily adapted by everybody?
Yeah, I think that's it. It's going to be a paradigm shift, and it's just going to play out slightly differently across the already existing and also incoming AI companies. The GPT, that 2017 paper by Google was about transformers, and GPT stands for like general something transformer.
Yeah.
So like OpenAI's stuff is built off of this research that was done at Google.
That's true.
So with this Titan stuff being released, I mean, my imagination says that they could have kept it secret if it was going to be like, I don't know, but they didn't. So I don't, and I don't know these things well enough to be like, they released everything you need to know. Or is it just more like they released enough to be like, haha, we have it, you don't. I don't know. But with AI, like Apple's approach to this is completely different, right? Like they want more localized processing, micro LLMs on the phone, the handling of privacy and data from their standpoint is just a completely different model than what Google would choose.
The data privacy around all of this is going to be interesting to me and how it develops, and because that I think could limit the power of some of these tools. Like good privacy could limit the power of some of these tools, but
yeah,
if you're not,
I think a lot of medical outcomes are worse because of HIPAA and privacy.
It'll be interesting to see how we decide to tackle that and how companies can build security in a way to make sure that if you do want to include sensitive information, because it'll make the output better, that there's a way to keep it secure and private and segregated from not just the general access, I guess, or malefacting actors, bad actors coming in and getting their hands on it.
Well, that's just that's a risk. Always, cybersecurity will always be a thing.
What could a bad actor do with your health data? Realistically,
outside of social security number, you're asking the wrong person, because I feel like I don't understand.
Yeah.
Other than the only other thing that I can think of is like that you've completely hidden some sort of illness from an insurance company or something.
Or the American public, as in The West Wing.
Yes.
Which I am now watching for the first time 25 years later. So I'm nice and current with what I'm doing. But yeah, it could be like that. If you want to hide your MS from everybody.
Hold on. So I'm a big West Wing fan. Have been forever. I used to watch it with my mom, and you had sent me that, if I was familiar with the West Wing or whatever, and I said yes, and that you were getting back into it. And you said something about like it's relatable to today or something. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, just like all the little.
Also, let's back up. You've seen season 1 and 2. Maybe you started 3.
Just 1 and 2. Yeah, just started 3. Like the first couple episodes. which, you know, is right. They do the 9/11 episode at the start of season 3, which doesn't fit in with anything else, but it's like just because it happened. They, you know, had this weird episode kind of
I
bottle
forget
episode
where
replacing
too.
9/11.
Aaron Sorkin left because he like had to go to rehab or something. So
That could be.
You can kind of throw those seasons out, and then he comes back later.
Good to know. Good to know. But the a lot of the same issues that we were seeing today around, I'm trying to think, like healthcare, around the courts, you know, how people, well, that's just timeless. As you know, people get appointed to the courts. Yeah. That's a timeless thing. Education was a big was a big topic in the early season. And I'm trying to remember, like there were a couple specific like topics that came up, like issues that came up. I'm like, man, I feel like we're talking about those issues the same way today, and it still feels timely the way they're having the discussion is what I was saying, trying to say. But now I can't. It's been a couple of a week since I've seen those episodes, and I don't remember what the topics were, the issues were.
But you're liking it.
Yeah, I'm liking it. It's amazing how well it's held up. Like I think as far as it doesn't feel particularly dated. It doesn't feel, you know, it doesn't feel out of time at this point. I think it still feels.
I think one of the first shows that was shot the way that it shot, which is a moving camera, very quick. So like it feels fat. Like then I think it felt turboed. Mm-hmm. Now today it feels matched, even though it's a 20-year-old show, right?
That's true. Because
everything just cuts keep getting faster, the whole bit.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Because I think, yeah, if I watched other dramas around that time frame, probably a lot slower pace.
Yeah, fewer cameras.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and you know, Sorkin's dialogue is Sorkin's dialogue. He's known for this, you know, very dense, information rich. Like nobody can actually speak like that because I don't like.
That's the cocaine he went to rehab for.
So is it as good when he gets out of rehab, or is it not as good?
I don't, fair question.
Well, no, but I couldn't. Did you ever see Newsroom? That was later on, and he had very much the same style, right?
Same style. Like, no, that dude's brain is definitely, he's good at dialogue. It's sharp. It's character rich.
Mm-hmm. I wish I could develop a character the way he has on some of these. Like it's like, oh man, those are, you know. He does a good job of building them out as whole people, I will say, in terms of and the way they, you know, start weaving in some of the history of the people in season 2 and how they got into the roles
and because it is a TV show, they get to make some mistakes that like people wouldn't be able to in real life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I'm like, some of it's like, there's no way this is actually the way this thing happens, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Also, who am I to judge? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on.
The government is a weird thing. It makes me want to go to Washington D.C. I think for a trip and take like 3-4 days. And I've never actually visited D.C.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm feeling the itch to go and, you know, check out the Smithsonian and walk around the National Mall and see it for myself for the first time. I don't know.
Do it. Yeah. Beautiful city.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Anyway, well, what's new with you, Dan? I think we never really got around to that.
Good question. It's like 4 here or something and snowy. So there's a little cabin fever going on. But it was like 60 on Thursday. We're recording on Sunday. So,
jeez.
So, you know, we had a nice break going into it, and then we got dumped on a bit of snow, and it got super cold. And this weekend's just sort of been like hunker down, make cookies, and all that kind of stuff. So it's been good, but I think we're all ready to like leave the house. It doesn't take long when kids are my age, I guess. What else? No, I've been cooking on the Nat Eliason coding with AI stuff. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's been drawing me in. It's kind of hard to like not keep going, even though my brain sometimes is like, "You're done now," or there's other things I have to do that I don't want to do. You know,
that's exciting. I'm glad to hear. That's the experience you're having with it. It's like you found a flow state in it. That's hard to do sometimes.
Oh yeah, totally. Um, yeah, I put on some music and I just go, and it's really, it feels like, what does it feel like? It feels like earlier in my career when it was just like there's this long but very known to-do list, and I need to put my head down and jam and get through this project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's something similar to it with that. It's sort of like but then the side quests that sort of develop as you go are welcome. They aren't like more work. They're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this feature makes sense. Let's add that and see if I can get that to work, and without breaking everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is very much a like, okay, well that worked, and now the 5 things we just got done building don't work, and you know you're building with Claude doing the programming,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't know how to code, there's definitely some, you know, difficulties. Let's say,
I'm
and
sure because you're not able to
honing
spot an error if it does exist, probably.
and then honing down Claude's attention on a particular thing or finding the right context to submit to it. There was one error that I was looping through. I looped through this error like 7 times, right? And I was like, I might just go back a lot and start rebuilding. And then I forget what happened, but I realized the error was being triggered by this one code within this one file. So I added that as context and fixed it. So
Amazing.
sometimes it's about finding the right spotlight.
Okay.
Other than that, we've just been kind of, yeah, doing all my regular things,
Yeah.
and then this, like
Yeah.
in every free waking moment, yeah. Which is why, like, I'm fast on Nat's heels as he creates these things.
Okay. How's the year starting for the picture business?
Not bad.
Happy with your
Down
numbers
year
so
over
far?
year, but moving in the right direction. Yeah. So
So
hopefully,
continued positive trend from a couple months ago,
yeah,
or good,
yeah. Think
good.
it'll be okay, but we'll
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
Okay. Your voice seems a little less tense when you're talking about it, so that's good. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean the context here is that like when you basically LBO at a business like I did,
hmm
you have to keep it at a very particular level, otherwise you stop paying bills pretty
hmm
quickly. It's not like, oh, you get to take home less money. It's like it happens very fast and suddenly. Um and we were sort of, we could see the writing on the wall of like this if we don't change something here, things are going to get uncomfortable pretty quickly. And yeah, it seems as though the boat is now turning in the right direction, but it's a big slow boat, so we need some weeks under our
hmm
belt to make sure that the trend continues and isn't just some sort of revenue jumps all over the place day to day, right? So we
hmm
need to just smooth that out and make sure the trend line is
Yeah.
moving in the right direction. But
Yeah.
at this point, the data says yes.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I didn't really consider how much variance you probably have in your daily revenue. It's probably quite volatile. Uh,
A little bit. I mean, both of our businesses are surprisingly consistent compared to like lots of other e-commerce, um, especially e-commerce, where like there's a whole bunch of people who make they make almost all their revenue in the quarter four, you
oh
know.
shit.
And then I know some other people that are in like outdoor sports, like they sell kayaks or something like that, and it's 3/4 of the revenue in summer, and that's it. But they're buying all their inventory in December, so it's like a real hard cash game. Um, but yeah, ours are a little bit more like spread throughout the year, which is good. It's easier to manage that way.
Yeah, that is a little easier to manage and not have to worry about. Like I would think if you have a seasonal business where it's you're getting your revenue in one quarter, like budgeting would just be so tricky.
Well, demand planning too. Like if I go out of stock on an item, I can get more stock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to be pissed off that I went out of stock. Amazon's going to be really pissed off that I went out of stock, and I'm going to get punished for it, and the whole thing. But it isn't that I missed out on that year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to miss out on some weeks probably, right? Whereas if I sell, 98% of my revenue is made in Q4, but I've got to buy all the things in Q2, put in the orders for everything in Q2. I have to know how many I'm going to sell in Q4. Otherwise, if I have extra, I've got to liquidate them. Or if I don't have enough, then I've left money on the table. I don't know how people do it. I know there's people that are really good at that game, but yeah.
That forecasting. There's as the line goes, there's 0 people in the forecasters Hall of Fame, right? It's impossible to do accurately. I'm sure there's certain industries where that's not the case. That things are pretty predictable. Like toothpaste, I bet Procter & Gamble has that forecast figured out pretty well. But yeah, certain like seasonal items, I don't know who knows what's going to catch the attention of everybody next year, right? Like, so much of it's about like, look at what happened to Peloton that quarter. Everybody had their attention on Peloton, and they just, everybody wanted one, and it was a cool, trendy thing to have, and everybody was getting them. And then now, not so much.
You blow a bunch of money trying to meet that demand, because a lot of times to meet it, you have to overspend.
Yeah, so they overspent like on building up factories, I believe.
Destroy your margins, yeah.
Yeah. Trying to do in-house manufacturing, I think they bit off more than they could chew and really hurt their profitability, from what I remember reading at the time.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, if you're Academy and trying to decide what bikes or kayaks to stock, good luck. Those are very smart buyers out there, I know, that do it for them. I don't know. I'm sure there's a good amount of luck involved there too, but I'm sure some people.
And
I'm sure
marketing
there's a skill
too. Like, you gotta, like, I don't know. The CFO's
what we
like,
have. We're gonna sell it.
Yeah,
right?
We have too much of this. You need to turn up the dial.
Yeah. Marketing. I think I forget how powerful that probably is, and like the tools they actually use.
Yeah.
Which is why
both on the direct marketing and also the indirect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which again is why Amazon and Google eat all the margin eventually, right? Through ads and marketing.
Yeah, Amazon takes about 40 cents on the dollar, just period. That's just operations. If you're using FBA, and then since it's pay to play, you basically will eventually go out of business if you don't use their ads machine. So basically, call it 60 cents on the dollar.
It's insane. That is insane. And no obvious competitors in sight. I guess maybe other than Walmart's marketplace, but really even them, no obvious competitors in sight.
Yeah.
There you have it.
This kind of goes back to stated versus revealed preferences. Everyone I know bitches and moans about Amazon's power, but do they buy anywhere else?
Nope.
Mostly not.
No. Really.
And there are alternatives. Like, Walmart is a real alternative for most people. Like, they're everywhere in this country.
They are.
But they don't have nearly the breadth of items either.
No, it's a much more curated selection, right? But again,
I don't know about curated, but missing.
Oh yeah.
They haven't gone to China the way Amazon has. Amazon tries to get Chinese businesses to kill American businesses that operate on Amazon. Like, they help them, is my statement. And then the American system helps further by not taxing any of the Chinese entities.
Can you give any examples of how that assistance is rendered?
Every single help article is in English and Chinese. I'm sure it's in other languages now too, but if you receive any of the email blasts as a seller, it's English and Chinese. more than 50% of all third-party sellers are now Chinese. And whether it's like highly documented or not, I think there's plenty of evidence showing that Amazon people go to China and try to get more Chinese sellers turned onto the platform. But then they'll play whack-a-mole with them too. Because the Chinese have no ramifications, right? Like if they try to skirt tariffs, they'll just shut it down. You don't need to worry about paying the tariffs. There's no penalty because the US government doesn't have reach into this Chinese system or CCP or anything like that, nor does the CCP care of what they do to American business. So if you skirt tariff law, and thereby, being able to sell your item for $3 instead of an American seller having to sell it for $5, because the American seller is paying income taxes and tariffs on the imported good. But the Chinese seller skirted the tariff and doesn't pay income taxes. Right. So this is how it all kind of ends up playing.
That's quite a dire sounding situation, really. It feels like
for Americans, I think.
Yeah.
But the revealed preference is people want more, and they want more junk, and they want it cheaper.
Yeah, that's what people are buying, right? They're buying often the lowest cost thing of whatever it is. How
do you fix it, Sean?
Sounds like you have to actually enforce tariffs that would be in place, right? If you're not actually enforcing the tariffs, then what good are they doing? They're just hurting everybody else. So
and they're more. It seems this is very much like not set, and the rest of the stuff is real. This, for me, is an opinion. It feels like they're more apt to punish the people playing games with the tariff codes and all that kind of stuff if they're American, because then you have someone to enforce it against. But if they're just Chinese, then what? All you do is throw away the container. There's no other further action you can take.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to...
the container can be full of fentanyl, and it's like, we can't go after those people. You can destroy the container, but you're not getting any help in enforcing. So,
no, exactly. If the government party on the other end is not willing to help or actively be a partner in the system and say, yeah, we're going to control this trade, more tightly, then you're never going to do it completely remotely, other than just, not letting the goods in and throwing away whatever shows up because it wasn't brought in properly. I don't know what you do. You're right. So those goods come in and they go to like an Amazon fulfillment center, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I don't see how they would get around. Who pays the tariffs? It's the importers paying the tariffs. So the importer is the Chinese company themselves, right? Tariff goes there. So what you're saying is they're putting on the wrong harmonized tariff codes, the wrong HEC codes to drive different tariff, drive them into different tariff buckets, essentially.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm not saying all of them do it. It's just one way. There's lots of different games to be played here.
Oh yeah, if there's money to be made, people will find the game to play to.
But I'm not going to go play Risk with breaking federal law and going to prison over this, right? Whereas the Chinese, where it's like, oh, well, we could save $30,000 on this container. And that's why your thing is $1.98 instead of $3.
Well, you know what won't fix it is more regulation. It's like, we'll just make make it so that all the goods are certified, so you're buying a certified tariff paid somehow. No,
certified tariff paid. That is,
I could see it happening though,
right?
you know?
Like the tax stamp on a bottle of liquor, and at least in Texas, they have to put tax stamps on everything.
Tax stamps, like the alcohol, like the excise tax.
Yeah. Like they have to pay, when they're initially distributing it, that it's been taxed at the appropriate level, and so like because there's certain spots that don't pay that. Like I guess it's the
Oh, like restaurants and stuff. Whoa! But then,
yeah, it's paid differently, or by distributors. Like because we have a 3-tiered system here in most places, so I think I don't know where the tax falls exactly. I mean, ultimately on the consumer, but I don't know where it's the transaction has happened. It's actually the taxable transaction. But when it happens, they put a sticker on it, and yeah, like if you're at a bar and they empty a bottle, it's for state law that they go and they have to scrape the sticker off, so they can't just refill it with non-taxed liquor. So you could create a certified taxed, Amazon product, but again, I don't know that more regulation is the answer necessarily.
yeah, no, I think I was just working over here trying to pull up a tweet that you triggered me into remembering. I think all we have to do is enforce laws that are already on the table.
Mm-hmm.
We just aren't enforcing them. If this is correct. So this is from a guy I follow on Twitter. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of his name, but it's Shingy. He used to work way back in the day. He used to work in Amazon, and then he started an e-commerce store, and he's been in the e-com game a long time now. And so he tweets at Doge, "Hey Doge, I think I found a few billion just by auditing whether or not foreign sellers on Amazon pay taxes." And I think this is a chat with like, I'll have to give you the links and stuff so you can post it. But he didn't post the actual question, but the answer is generally no. Amazon does not typically issue 1099Ks to foreign sellers.
I was just looking up a 1099K. I've never heard of that form.
Yeah.
Looks like a joy.
Anyway, the summary of the prompt that he's posting here is: if that company is indeed operating as a foreign entity and not reporting U.S. income, they likely are not receiving a 1099K from Amazon. However, this does not absolve them of their potential U.S. tax obligations. This is a key point for the IRS to investigate, as it suggests potential tax evasion.
Makes sense.
And there's like a follow-on tweet that I'm trying to load, but it won't load. But I think the moral of the story is like, until this goes to court, there's been no like precedent set.
Mm-hmm.
But once it's decided in a decently upper court or something, then the precedent will be set, and then these foreign, because this is income made in the United States that ought to be taxed. Mm-hmm. I think maybe I just don't understand the system well enough, but if I make the money, I got to pay the taxes. I don't see why, if they're making money off of U.S. consumers, that they wouldn't also be taxed. Shouldn't that be money that was made here?
I would think so. Otherwise, you're going to give every foreign seller just an ungodly advantage against. Like that's not why. We do have some protections, and that's why we have tariffs, is to try to protect our.
Okay, I got it, Sean. I got it. You ready?
Yeah.
What book are you reading right now? Or what book are we supposed to be reading right now?
Sovereign Individual.
So what does it stop if like, as things go more borderless, like they do in this book, or purport to in this book, then if I see this advantage from the Chinese sellers and I'm like, okay, well, this isn't just Amazon. This is like the entirety of the United States economy. Why shouldn't I just move to Vietnam? Outside of my family life and connection to friends and community, whatever. But like, or frankly, like Singapore is not out of the realm of possibilities, right? Mm-hmm. Go to Singapore, live a very westernized, nice life with high connection to East Asia, pay very little in taxes, and completely skirt U.S. income laws.
I think the cost of living in Singapore is probably more than Vietnam, from my understanding.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So you might have a disadvantage with the cost of living. But no, you're absolutely right. And that's one of their central arguments, right? Is that if people are able to digitally escape tax burden, they will.
And this is where I think one of the things that's wrong with this book is like, I don't think countries are going to stand idly by and do nothing.
I agree.
However, me right now, that's how I feel my country is doing, because billions of dollars are being made by Chinese sellers and not being taxed. And it's all money being made in the United States through United States businesses. I think there should be an income tax on it. You're free to make money and participate in our system, but you got to pay the same taxes. You got to pay the base level tax that everyone else pays.
I would agree with that. And it's a shame that that's not actually what's happening or being enforced, if that's, or that's what you're seeing. Yeah, because like that's one of the reasons I feel that their argument is wrong, is that governments won't stand idly by, or that they also seem to almost in a way argue that they won't be able to actually have control over this. And I think we've seen that with the way TikTok is no longer in the United States, so they were able to control that, right? So,
and not the first time in history that they've done something like that.
Yeah, so I like to say that they can't be control implemented, or that there's not going to be a desire to, because you know what? Like, I think their argument is valid if you're ultra rich, and that's about for it. And so that's 1-2%. The other 98% of the people are going to stand up and do something. I would think at some point. So the more I listen and get through that book, the more I'm like, these guys are just not.
They're taking something that's in their heads and applying it so broadly against the population of people in the world. And I think that's one of the mistakes is, I moved away from home and I haven't returned. I've lived all over the country and traveled the world, and I'm lucky to have done all of these things. And I'm in no way promoting my way of doing it, nor am I putting someone else down that chose a different path. However, the majority of people do not leave home. They're not going to leave the comforts of home. I was just watching like Blade Runner 2049 the other day, and it's like, man, if LA looked like that, why would anyone stay? It's like, because that's their entire world. They've known it since they were born. That's where their whole entire community is. It's really hard to leave the fabric of the place of where you're from. And I think it can be distinctly American, but these two guys I feel like are this way. They're just wired. They're like, why wouldn't you just choose the best situation that's available to you with no regard to the other
I fully
things
agree.
Going on.
That's a very good summary of the way that book makes me feel. Which is by and large frustrated.
Yeah. Okay, wait, like I want to know more about that. Frustrated, like what?
One that they keep taking like these like recurring themes of talking about how, back before technology, when we were more feudal lords and we're going to atomize to be, the city state, like before the city state was in power, it was like this. And their argument is that the city state's going to, collapse, and that we're going to go back to that, more feudal lord type situation in a way.
Yeah.
And they keep repeating the same, I feel like weak arguments, or the same, like they're trying to paint the picture using historical details, and I keep feeling like they're grabbing irrelevant details. I don't know. It doesn't feel. I'm frustrated because I feel like, okay, you've explored this idea and you keep exploring it, but you're not giving me anything new as you explore it. And I think the core of the idea itself is kind of bunk, so it's just frustrating all around.
Okay, what is
highly recommend as one to skip and get the Cliff's Notes, y'all.
Yeah, I very much agree on that one.
Have
there's
Claude
something
summarize it for you. You'll probably have a better experience.
Oh, I had Claude do a summary of Carl Jung the other day.
Oh yeah,
really good.
You mentioned you were getting into Jung.
Yeah. Well, here I'll give you the couple quotes that like grab my attention and are making me like dive in a little bit. But first, they're what were we just saying with the Benjamin Disraeli? He was a prime minister out of Britain, I think. There's a quote that Chris Williamson of the Modern Wisdom podcast that he pulls out of his pocket every so often, and it's something along the lines of an American first lady is at dinner with a British prime minister, and the one at the time, I forget the guy's name, and then the next time she had dinner, it was a different prime minister. I think it was Disraeli. And her comment was, well, the first one, whoever it was, made me think that he was the smartest man in the world. And then sitting with Disraeli, maybe I'm getting them backwards. Sitting with Disraeli, he made me feel like the smartest person in the world. And it was more or less not in like how people perceive you, but how can you make people perceive themselves?
Interesting.
Yeah. And the sovereign individual, Peter Thiel, the whole bit, it makes me feel like if I were at a table having a conversation with them, I would be very much enthralled and impressed with their intelligence. But at no point would they have made me feel anything about myself.
I think that is an apt description. I get that same. I can understand that emotion very much. I would feel. I see it. I feel it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, smart guys really put their heart and soul into this book. But anyway. Cliff Notes. That's
yeah. That's
okay.
That's
so
what I'll recommend.
A couple Carl Jung quotes that have found me here and have made me want to dive into him a little bit more. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents.
So is that in relation because of what the parents then put their children through, or then is it in relation to the child seeing their parents and read the quote one more time?
The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents.
Yes. Okay. So is it the burden of seeing like your aging parents and them not having lived their dreams, or is it the burden of the parent putting on their unlived dreams on the child? Does that make sense? Like those are the two ways I was trying to figure out which way is the interpretation that he's going for, because I think both would be valid.
Yeah, I think both would be valid. I would need more context to be able to give you an answer of like what he specifically was trying to convey. Mm-hmm. But inside that quote, I'm right there with you. I think both of them. But I think the more powerful one is probably the one that affects the child when they're younger, which would be the parent who,
and then the trauma
basically
of
is moping around, not having realized what they feel they should have realized of themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the most toxic version would be, you child, you stole my life from me.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I think that's it.
That's the most dangerous one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right.
Just saying that out loud breaks my heart. It's because that happens to kids.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it really does. It does happen to kids, which is a shame in this modern day with access to, should have ready access to birth control and measures to make that not the case, but it still happens.
Yeah.
And, and people, I think, there are parents out there having kids for all number of reasons, and some of them probably aren't so good. So
it's always been that way. I think there's a lot less village support now, though, because we don't live in tiny little enclaves.
That's true.
We need large systems, and large systems are not necessarily fit for this job so much. Not that they don't work. It's just not the same. It's not the same kind of fabric.
No, it's not.
Anyway, I want to bring the mood back up.
Yes.
Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate.
I like that one.
All right.
Mm-hmm. That's we've talked about the thought before of having self-talk that becomes self-perpetuating and manifesting, right? This is the saying you can do that unconsciously, essentially. And if you don't think about it and bring it to the top of mind and understand naming the demon, right? It's kind of that old allegory of if you want to get rid of the demon, you have to say its name. It's just the awareness of
walk into the fire.
Yeah. I think those that allegory in a way is tied to people's internal struggles with their internal demons and having to face them and just facing it and saying its name, bring to forefront of consciousness takes it then the power away from it.
Yeah.
In a way is how I interpret what that quote, at least. I don't know. Why did it strike you so deeply?
I think for me, I think there's an easy way out often. And in this context, it would be, why did that happen to you? Well, it was fate. That's the easy way out.
Mm-hmm. And
rather than taking
ownership
this
or accountability.
Ownership, accountability, and also this I'm going to go back to this radical acceptance, right? Maybe you can change fate. Or maybe there is no fate. I don't know. Just all of this is.
I think changing fate. I like changing fate somehow
that
more.
Goes on.
Yeah.
And letting your heart get a little closer to the woo, and accepting that you might have more power than you think, and if you're willing to walk into the fire, you have a whole bunch more power than most of those around you. And yeah, something about this marrying of this unconscious, conscious, paying more attention to what's going on. I don't know. I start losing words here, but yeah.
It's interesting.
Have we talked about telepathy tapes yet?
I don't think we've talked about it online. Let's save that for tomorrow, because I think we can get into that deep.
It's going to be real hard for me to talk about because I don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But it's incredible.
Let me think about it for another day.
I really do enjoy that it's taken the world by storm, though. But,
I've gotten so many people to listen to it so far. I've gotten, I don't know, half dozen people, which is pretty good, honestly. Getting people to engage with the podcast, it's hard to do.
It is, yeah. It's a big time suck.
Yeah, and everybody that's listened to it on my recommendation has come back and had their mind thoroughly blown. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that. It's in some depth, but I don't know what depth now that I'm thinking about it.
I don't know what depth either. Yeah, it's going to be weird.
Yeah. Let's start with that. As a weird spot to dive off the cliff tomorrow, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. So here's another quote that found me since we talked about Bloomberg earlier and Mike specifically. It comes from him. It's in relation to some Henry Singleton quotes that were basically like, no, I don't plan. I wake up and I figure out what the hell I'm going to do that day.
Okay.
So Michael Bloomberg, I never let planning get in the way of doing. Don't devise a 5-year plan. Central planning didn't work for Stalin or Mao. It won't work for an entrepreneur either.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
I liked it too.
Yeah, because so much planning is based off of forecasting. And again, there's nobody in the Forecasters Hall of Fame. So
what does it matter?
Yeah.
You're going to be disappointed when you don't meet your plan because the world changed on you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to blame yourself when in fact it was the world and your lousy plan.
And that's why you should focus on goals that are leading, like number of bike rides, not number of pounds lost. It's, the things you can do to actually influence the outcome, focus on those and go with God on the rest, because
well said. Yeah, there you go. Go with that.
Because it's out of your control a lot of times. And you're going to have to just ride the wave and, make the turns when you need to. I don't know. Bad mixed metaphor there on surfing, but
And you will call it fate.
And you will call it fate. No, but that's the point of not calling it. The part of not calling it fate is like addressing the things you can, right, and doing the things that are in your control, and that's as much control as you have. But there is a certain amount of fate and luck, and
luck for sure.
Yeah, there is. But you got to be out there swinging when
Yeah, you got to be out there trying.
Yeah, otherwise you're never going to get lucky. So.
Yeah.
So to speak.
All right. Well, let's put it there, Sean.
Dan,
excellent work. Yes.
Excellent work.
Yeah, I like that.
First recording session of the year. Took us, I think,
that's right.
We got back into the groove here. I'm looking forward to get another rep in tomorrow and continue to build the muscle. I guess until next time, everybody, we'll. I was going to say something, I lost it. I guess until next time, everybody.
Until next time, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. Shout us on Twitter. Leave us, leave us a like, give us a subscribe if you haven't already. Toodles.
Toodles.